In fact, I think I said to our Israeli promoter 2 years ago, I'm sure I said to him, look, if I come back to Israel, I'm going to do something that's, going to be for, something other than just a regular concert. You pay us the money and we disappear, put it in the Swiss bank or whatever. So I made a decision really quite a while back. But, you do that. I'm planning ahead, for 2011, some other things that I'm going to do in other places. So, I'm lucky. I get paid to come and play all around the world.
What do you think about Israeli public, about the Israeli audience?
Well, I would have to say that all around the Mediterranean, there are people of different backgrounds, different languages, different ethnic, religious, social, cultural groups who are not so different when it comes to putting them in front of us in some seats. And I don't feel like I'm playing somewhere so far away. Last year I played just up the road there in near Beirut, which would be deeply unpopular with a lot of Israeli people who think, how could I go there? But I wasn't going there to buy missiles for Hezbollah. I was there to do a concert that was part of a cultural festival that we were asked to play, and I have a good friend who regularly goes and plays in Lebanon and thinks it's great, and so we went there to play, and I play further up the road in Turkey. And last week I was further up the road and a bit over there in Greece, and it's all Mediterranean countries and people who, I think if you strip away some of the superficial differences and if you strip away some of the deep cultural roots, what you have is a bunch of people sitting in the sun, sipping coffee and watching pretty girls walking on the beach. People are not really so different. I get the feeling, and you would get the feeling if you stood on a stage next to me, that these people are not so different. So I don't find a huge difference from wherever I go within the general region of the Mediterranean as a whole.
And what makes you come back here every time? This is your 6th time in Israel?
I think it is, yeah. It's been a lot of times. Well, I suppose there is a fascination that many of us have for a place so rich in history and prehistory, and is it so much at the centre of religious history and cultural history in a way that I think is like no other. It is.
I speak some about music. You're still enjoying playing like 40 years ago?
Well, it's a kind of a passion, and it's difficult to analyse, and bad, I think, actually, to try and analyse too much about why you're doing it or what it is you like about it. I think it's something you've just got to do, and as long as you're driven to do it, it's I think a good idea not to question your own motives, not to question your own reasons too much for doing it or keeping doing it, because it is a kind of a strange addiction, not an addiction to fame or an addiction to rapturous audiences giving you some seal of approval when you're on the stage. It's an addiction to something which is about the expression and the passion which goes with it. And I think in the same way you can have that passion and that expression in other fields in life. I think Michael Schumacher still has it. He had it a few days ago when he tried to run Rubens Barrichello off the road, and he's an old guy. He should have stopped racing when he did, but he's come back because he just has to do it again. He has to try.
Is the same passion in writing, or in writing new things?
Well, I think that's something that creeps up on you periodically. I think when I first started writing music, it would be, kind of every week I would have a new song or a new tune or something I was doing. And these days it tends to come in periods when I think, right, I'm going to write some new music, and then in a period of 2 or 3 weeks, I might write 5 or 6 or 7 pieces of new music and lyrics, whatever, and then not write anything else for a year. I can remember sitting in a van in Germany on tour last summer, and I was just going through the songs that I'd written in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I had about 6 songs, and I was quite surprised that I hadn't really been counting, but suddenly there was this flood of new material coming out when I was actually on tour, which is how it used to be, in the sense that I used to write a lot of music sitting in hotel rooms and or just maybe in my head when I was sitting on an airplane somewhere, and quite a lot of it is still that way. I think probably I would tend to be more productive when I'm away from home. When I'm at home, there are too many priorities as they seem at the time, which have to do with domestic life, wife, family, cats, dogs, missing roof tiles off the roof, things that keep you occupied in a way that makes it quite difficult to take the time to be creative in the traditional way. Anyway, yeah, people sometimes, when they're influenced, then that's good. But I would like to think they were only a little bit influenced, just as I was a little bit influenced by lots of people when I started. It's good to have influences, but it's not good to be just to have 1 or 2 and then spend the rest of your life trying to recreate what somebody did. You've got to have your own ideas and be like a chef in the kitchen. Take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a couple of those, and stir it all up and create something which is your end result. Top of the list by a long way is Beethoven, and if for no other reason, top of the list of my pieces of composition in the classical genre are essentially 3 of Beethoven's symphonies, but particularly the 9th Symphony, which for me is the most incredibly all-encompassing, great, huge piece of music, and that's an enormous work, an enormous bringing together of lots of influences he had. A truly wonderful piece of music. Bach, he's kind of in there as well as being someone that I really admire, and also some of the very early, pre-classical era in the period of more evolutionary music in Europe. People like Dowland, who were part of a rather romantic era of music. When music began to be seriously understood and written down, and vocal music started to become acceptable outside the world of the church, vocal love songs became something. It was interesting. Sting, I think, also kind of cottoned on to that kind of music a few years ago, and was quite moved by that era of music writing, when the love song became acceptable as a kind of a minor art form. And I'm the guy who goes to iTunes and types in best classical music album ever, because I just want to hear the easy things. I want someone to do the work for me. I'm not a student of music. I wasn't brought up with listening to the detail of classical music. So I tend to buy albums that are called the very best of Mozart, and boxed sets of Beethoven and whatever else. So I tend to listen to pretty much mainstream stuff. There is so much of it to listen to. So I'm not a great expert at all in classical music.
In rock music?
What I hear tends to have been throughout my life what I've heard coming to me from the radio, or hearing somebody with the window of their room open and listening to a gramophone playing in the distance. I just hear it.
How about notation? Do you read?
No, I don't read or write music, and I used to be quite grateful that I didn't, because I thought it kept me very free and fresh and naive about music. But I do sometimes wish that I had those skills, particularly when I'm working with more classically trained musicians, because I do a lot of concerts with orchestras and string quartets and people from the classical world, and sometimes it would be very useful for me to be able to communicate in their terms, or to look over their shoulder and say, yes, when you get to this note, you just need to just pull it back slightly, or to be able to communicate with them. But I look at what they're reading, and to me it just looks like the Dead Sea Scrolls. I have no idea.